All right. Well, we're into the hour of power. This coming up that hour, we've got the spiritual spotlight, as well as maybe some news that you can do, entertainment news, and much more this hour.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and do my part first.
Okay. Let's do that.
And I want to talk about leadership and leadership styles.
Okay.
It's hard for a person like me to be able to see what's going on out here in the world, and to be such a little small person that nobody knows. Nobody, if I could just hook a speaker up that would go into every house in the United States and into every phone, into every car, into every television, I would do it. I would totally do it, because there's so much going on, and we are being deceived so badly with propaganda by leaders who are just getting rich from our deception. We, as the people in the United States of America, we have the more power. When you feel weak and powerless, that's when they've got you. The power isn't through violence. It isn't through fighting. See, when leaders, and let me tell you, leaders who have to fight for their position of leadership. We have leaders, we have people who have influence over people who had to fight their way up to the top. They had to fight for everything, every little bit of success they have. They've had to fight for it. Now, when you're in a position, when you finally get to a place where you had to go from nothing to now you're a person of influence, and now you're a person of, you've got a little power and influence, what do those people tend to do once they get into positions of power, who had to fight all the way up to that position of power? They tend to want to go for revenge. They want to pay back whoever they perceive to be their enemy on their way up to the top, right? Mm-hmm. Whoever that enemy is, well, once I get up there, I'm going to make them pay. The only problem is you don't really know who your enemy was. You were fighting your way up to the top thinking somebody was your enemy when it was really somebody else. You were just deceived. But now you're in your position of power, so now it's time to get revenge, right? Kind of like, if I'm going to be the first female president, I've got to pay all the men back, right? That didn't, I got to go after. Once I get there, I'm going to make all the men pay.
Yeah.
See, that's retarded. That's a retarded attitude. Well, I want you to know that there are different types of leaders. Not everyone who's in a position of leadership had to fight. Not everyone gets to be a leader by fighting.
Right.
Some people get to be in positions of leadership because they're smart.
Yes.
And they don't get there. They don't get to be leaders because they fought their way there.
Right.
They get to be leaders because they did good. They can do good things for all types of people. There's a such thing as transactional leaders. And then there's a different type of leader, transformational leader. Now, I want to use two leaders from the Bible. King David and his son Solomon. Okay? King David wanted to build God's temple, but God would not let him because he spilt blood. Because he had to. Here's the thing. King David was what you call a transactional leader, transactional type leader. He was the type of leader that went from nothing to being king, but he had to fight for everything he had. Not only did he have to fight King Saul, he had to fight within his own group of people, but he had to fight people from other races and other nations also. Mm-hmm. But he had to fight for everything he got, and then he had to fight to maintain it. Now, transactional leaders, I'm going to read the definition of a transactional leader. Known as managerial leadership, focuses on supervision, organization, and performance. Transactional leader is a style of leadership in which the leader promotes compliance by the followers through both rewards and punishment. So go along with me and I'll reward you. If you don't, I'm going to punish you, kind of thing. You got to follow my rules, you got to maintain my standards, and I'll reward you. It's kind of the holding the carrot out in front of the horse kind of thing. And we have a lot of preachers out here preaching prosperity. They dangle that carrot, right? And as long as you're a part of their organization and you're agreeing with everything they say and you're doing everything they want you to do, they supposedly reward you, right? But if you notice, who are their followers? They're limited. King David had to fight to get his position of leadership, and then he had to fight to keep it. So his life was just one big fight, one fight after another fight. But King Solomon, he didn't fight. All the people that his dad fought against, he was friends with. He was a transformational leader. And a transformational leader is a style of leadership where the leader works with subordinates to identify needed change, creating a vision to guide the change through inspiration, and executing the change in tandem with committed members of a group, or just committed members. Changing, world changers, people who can know how to transform their world and their society. Now, when you apply this concept of transactional leaders and transformational leaders, you have to understand that when you put it in a Christian perspective, there are leaders out here who understand the direction God's moving in with this nation of the United States of America. And they prepare their followers and they transition their followers to move into that direction. The Christians and the church, the people who are involved in the church system, the Christian church system, who are going to get stuck right here, are the ones who are not preparing their congregations for transition. They're unable to recognize and to see the direction God's moving in. And they're not preparing their members in their congregation for transition, for diversity and inclusion.
Yes, yes.
They're trying to maintain their little exclusive group, right?
Correct.
And they're going to punish anybody that doesn't stick with their form of compliance, right? They're transactional. They get all caught up on performance. I mean, and there's a time when transactional leadership is needed. I mean, after the transformation, when God is leading, when God raises up a leader who wants to lead this nation, like somebody like Martin Luther King, he was a transformational leader. He was not transactional, he was transformational. Now, sometimes after the transformation and during the process of the transformation, once things get transformed, then you might need transactional leaders to be put in place to maintain the transformation, or to maintain, you know, what was transformed. But you have to be careful, because see, Moses ran into this problem with a guy named Korah. See, Moses was trying to lead some slaves, some people who were slaves in the past. He was trying to lead them into a place of abundance, a promised land. But they just could not get that slave mentality out of their mind. They couldn't get it out of their mind. And it made God so angry, he was about to kill them all. And he put them out in the wilderness for 40 years until that generation that couldn't get them over the fact that they were slaves in Egypt, they were all dead. Now, Moses is trying to lead them into the promised land, but even though they're out of Egypt, they're not in slavery. They're out of slavery. They still have slave mindset. They still have slavery still in their minds, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and Moses is trying to lead them, but you got these people named Korah, okay? You got this guy named Korah. And he's trying to oppose Moses and Joshua. And God just opened up the ground and just swallowed them up alive. And anybody and everybody that thought like Korah, acted like Korah, agreed with Korah, got struck down by the Lord. See, because we're trying to move forward. We're not trying to move back. We're not trying to go back. We're trying to go forward. We're trying to go God wants to do something new, something we ain't never seen before. God wants to do something new here. Something that they could not perceive, they could not imagine, they couldn't even think it up.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a future. It's something in the future. You can't dream it up because he hasn't told it to anybody yet. He hasn't let anybody see it yet. But you got these little issues in your society that's hindering the progress. And look, this nation's going the way God wants it to go. It's not going to go the way your leader, your religious leaders, your politicians, your wicked rich people want it to go. It's going in God's direction.
You got that right.
And it doesn't have anything to do with what race you are and everything, you know? It has to do with what God wants done. It doesn't matter if you're red, yellow, brown, green, black, white, purple, whatever. That's irrelevant. Those are issues we dealt with those are past issues. We're not dealing with those issues today. And we're going to go to Proverbs chapter 29 because, the other day we were talking about Donald Trump's net worth. Yeah. He's worth $3.7 billion. He paid $35 million in taxes, and I started looking at what the last, presidents, and what brought this on, I guess, was kind of Snoop Dogg's video where he was, you know, trying to shoot the president in the video, which was probably just a publicity stunt, but it's not really a wise move right now. But anyway, on Snoop Dogg's part. But Snoop is worth $143 million, and that was reported as of 2015. Okay. George Bush was worth $25 million, Bill Clinton $80, George W. Bush $20, Barack Obama $11.8 million. These are millions, okay? They're worth $25 million, $80 million, $20 million, $11.8 million, where Donald Trump is worth $3.7 billion. Now, Pastor Creflo Dollar is worth $27 million, and he's a pastor. So I'm just trying to show you that he's a pastor and he's worth what some presidents are worth. You know, to kind of just put that in a religious perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to go to Proverbs 29. Because Proverbs 29 says, by justice, a king gives a country stability. But those who are greedy for a bribe tear it down. Now, who do you think's more likely to take a bribe? A president who's worth $25 million or $11 million, or a president who is worth $3.7 billion? Who's most likely? Who's more vulnerable to be bribed?
Someone with less money.
Someone who theirs is smaller, right?
Exactly.
Men kind of get caught up on size. And then it becomes a contest of whose is going to be bigger, right? Proverbs 29:7, the righteous care about justice for the poor, but the wicked have no such concerns. Under whose government, under whose administration were justice for the poor an issue? When is justice for the poor an issue? When wicked men rule. That's when justice for the poor becomes an issue. The wicked have no such concerns. So a man that's greedy for a bribe, that's ruling a nation, is not concerned with justice for the poor. Now, he might say that. You know, they all put on their faces, right? They all tell you what you want to hear, but they have motives. They're hidden agendas.
They've got motives?
Proverbs 29:8, mockers stir up a city, but the wise turn away anger. Verse 10, the bloodthirsty hate a person of integrity and seek to kill the upright. Verse 16 of Proverbs 29. When the wicked thrive, so does sin. But the righteous will see their downfall. So when the wicked thrive, sin thrives, right? Has sin gotten better or worse over the past 30 years?
Worse.
Since the 1980s.
It's got a lot worse.
Has sin been thriving?
Yes.
Has justice for the poor become an issue more and more over the past 30 years? Verse 22, an angry person stirs up conflict, and a hot-tempered person commits many sins. Who stirs up conflict? Who did I just say stirs up conflict? Stirs up a city. Mockers stir up a city. Mockers. Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 24. Whoever robs their father or mother and says it's not wrong is a partner to one who destroys. So, poor people. Let's talk about these poor people out here in the streets, saying it's somebody else's fault they're poor. Out here being destructive, robbing their mom and mothers and fathers, and abusing their elderly parents and grandparents for drug money. Whose fault is it you're poor? The greedy stir up conflict, but those who trust in the Lord will prosper. Who are you trusting in? You're not prospering. Whose side are you on? You're siding with the very leaders they're the leaders that are keeping you poor are the ones that are stirring you up and causing you to sin. What type of leader do you want? What type of leader do we need? Think about that. Let's just think about that. While we're out here, you know, if it looks like a chicken and it clucks like a chicken and it acts like a chicken, call it a chicken. Right? Call it a chicken. But use some sense. Think about some of these things I'm talking to you about as we move on.
Are you ready? Hey, thank you. Degenerate into something cool. We just got tired of doing what you told us to do. That's a freak, boy. Yeah, that's a freak, little man. Break it down. Think you can tell me what to do? You know who you're talking to?
Hey, this is Ian Holt, co-author of the international bestseller Dracula the Undead. When I am needing a laugh or looking for the best information on the radio dial, I tune into Ryan O Radio Mornings, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. daily, only on WQEE 99. Rock the key.
Welcome back into Rhino Radio Mornings. I'm Ryan O'Neill.
I'm Andra Polanas.
Good morning to you. Hope you're having a great morning. We are so far. Let's continue our discussion.
Well, we're talking about the difference between transactional leadership and transformational leadership.
Correct.
Now, transactional leadership, there are some advantages to transactional leadership, but there are also some disadvantages. Now,
such as?
Well, employee motivation. When you offer a reward, you say, okay, here's something that, now Jesus was a transformational leader. But when you read the 7 letters to the 7 churches in Revelation, his style is sort of transactional there, because he's offering a reward and a punishment. Now, if you notice, there's a pattern to every one of those letters. He starts out telling the churches. He announces who he is. And so he establishes his authority, and then he tells them what they're doing that's good. You know, he affirms, you know, the good behavior. And then he tells them that what it is he dislikes, what it is they need to change. And then he tells them if they make the changes and the modifications, they get this reward. If they do not, then they get this punishment.
Right.
And then, so though that's a very transactional style there, where his style when he was actually here, as a person walking around, was transformational. So there is a time for one or the other. And a lot of times the reward is the motivation to make you want to change, and the punishment is the motivation to detour you from the bad behavior. And achieving goals, and there's a clear structure and productivity, and making progress. All of those are advantages of transactional leadership. But the disadvantages are that sometimes the structure's not clear, and the policies can be unbendable, and it can be discouraging.
Right.
When the policies are unfair to one group or over another group. When your policies are set in a way that only give the advantage to one certain group, and it oppresses another group, then it can be discouraging. And sometimes there's a lack of accountability, and a lack and there's an insensitivity among the leaders in a transactional group, who are the ones benefiting. There's this insensitivity to a certain group when one group benefits over another.
I get it.
And so let's see. Sometimes transactional leaders can offer a reward, set a goal, and I've seen this happen. They make a goal for you, right? And if you reach that goal, you get this reward. But then they make other rules that make those goals unachievable. Like, I'm gonna make this goal for you. If you, I'm gonna just say, if you sell 25 of product X, you sell 25 product X this month, you're going to get this big bonus check. Okay? So, let's say if you sell 25 cars this month, or 5 cars this month, you get this big bonus check. Okay? But in order for you to sell those cars, I've got to approve the deal. Okay? So, you come to me with a customer that's wanting to buy this car, and I'm not going to approve the deal. I'm not, because this is the price we want for the car. This is the offer. This is the customer's counter offer. So you bring it to me for approval. You got it sold, but I don't approve the deal. I say, no, I'm not going to approve the deal. You go back, you tell the customer, no, my manager won't accept this price for the car. The customer leaves. You as the salesperson, go home, okay? I, the manager, call the customer up after the customer goes home, and I accept the deal behind your back. And then I fire you for not being able to make the sale. Kind of a rigged system, right? So I'm going to set goals that are unattainable. Now, blaming can become a problem. under a transactional leader. And people can become over-reliant on their leader under a transactional leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, transformational leader recognizes and exploits an existing need or demand of a potential follower, looks for potential motives in followers, seeks to satisfy a higher need, and engages the full person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they recognize that the transactional needs in potential followers, but they understand that there's a need to go a little further and a little higher. So a transformational leader will facilitate, and they'll set like a mission and a vision. So they're more future focused. They're more creative.
Yeah.
And they're more focused on restructuring a system for a goal accomplishment, for accomplishing things. Right?
Correct. Yes.
So just to kind of reiterate, if any of that made any sense, I'm not really an expert on all this. I'm just kind of dabbling in the. I was just what got me on this topic was the whole thing about Donald Trump being, I'm not really preaching today like prophetically or anything. I'm just kind of looking at some of what's going on in the world today, and I really truly believe that we're in a power struggle in this nation. We've got some people in the United States of America who want to keep things the same. They don't want to move forward. They want to, keep us in the wilderness. They want to keep us fighting
desert.
about things that we were fighting about 100 years ago. They want to keep opening up old wounds, instead of us moving forward and growing. And so I see that we have some transformational leaders out here too, who are in a struggle. They're trying to prepare their followers for a transition and for change. Now, a good leader is going to do that. A good leader is going to can recognize change, the need for a change. And they know how to manage the changes. They know how to transition their constituents towards the change. Now, when you're following God, when you're following the Lord, it's very important to understand the direction God's going in, the direction God's moving in. And if you're a child of God, if you're a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ, do not get behind any leader that does not understand the direction God's moving in. And it doesn't matter if this is a black man or white man or black woman or white woman, Chinese man, Spanish man or woman. It doesn't matter their race or their gender. It only matters, does this person understand the direction God's moving in? And that is the person we should support and we should follow, right?
Hey, boy! Are you too afraid to fight?
You come armed with a sword. But I come in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel. I'm going to kill you. It's your body that the dogs will eat, and all the world will know there is a God in Israel.